much, everyone, for staying with us. Let's now focus our attention on fixing the Nigerian law. There are those who will say, blame the Constitution. There are a lot of problems there. There are those who will say, overhaul the laws. There are those who will say, restructure Nigeria. There are different debates and arguments about the way forward for Nigeria. Now, I mean, the hardship is biting so hard. There are those who will say, there are aspects of our laws, if tweaked, can give us the desired result. And that's why the National Assembly, in the 10th National Assembly, are now looking at amending the law. And for example, the issue of state police, there are a lot of disagreement. But for the first time, we're seeing federal government and the National Assembly moving in the same direction. Let's talk to someone who is in the know. Of course, today we know what INEC has said. INEC has released a 2023 election report and highlighting to the nation some of the challenges that they faced. Let's speak with one of those persons who perhaps, I can tell you, has got some of the most knowledge about Nigeria's election and Nigeria Constitution amendment. Nwankwo is the Executive Director of PLAC and a constitutional lawyer who will be speaking with us on the program. But in respect of the constitutional amendment, the National Assembly seems to have a clear idea on what to do. Let's take a listen to the Deputy Speaker, Honorable Okeze Okpazu, on what the plan for this 10th National Assembly.
Amending the Constitution to allow the state policing is not only a step towards true federalism, but also an acknowledgement of the diverse security challenges that vary from one state to another.
Mr. Speaker, today, the UN density for police is 4:1. We have a population of 200 million people, and the number of our policemen are under 400,000. It is appalling indeed.
So many states, we have security outfits. When they come out in their uniform, it gives impetus to the communities.
In the House, that conversation will be led and chaired by the Deputy Speaker, Benjamin Okeze Kalu, and in the Senate, it will be chaired by the Deputy Senate President. But let's speak and get some insight into one of Nigeria's constitutional lawyer, foremost constitutional lawyer, Nwankwo, who joins us live from Lagos. It's good to have you tonight, join us tonight on the program. Thank you so much, Mr. Nwankwo.
Thank you, Sheon.
I think I should get your quick view before we get into constitutional amendment on the report coming from INEC on the election of 2023. They are already addressing some of the problem. In respect of iREV, this is what INEC says. They said, during the troubleshooting process, the commission said it established the errors being received by presiding officers originated from within an application due to problems relating to configuration, permissions, or failure to create or access application resources correctly. They are saying the failure of iREV or the malfunctioning of iREV does not affect the integrity or the outcome of the election. They're saying that technology should play a better role in our future election. Do you agree with the position of INEC, the explanation, and some of the failures or the challenges they faced in the last election?
I think for a lot of Nigerians, there was huge, incredible disappointment with the failure of iREV, with the failure of several of the improvements in technology that INEC had achieved before the elections, and which it had promised would be effectively deployed. Clearly, the iREV system was not effectively deployed. Clearly, INEC's explanation at this time hasn't yet and doesn't yet address the concerns that we all have about how the elections went. And I think that when we look at INEC explanations, I would still say that we have a long way from getting the truth of what happened with the failure of iREV. iREV worked with respect to one aspect of an election that held on the same day as the presidential elections, where the iREV did not work at all. So first of all, it's taken an incredible amount of time for this explanation to come up. Secondly, it doesn't necessarily match the facts of or circumstances of what happened on the same day that INEC was deployed, iREV was deployed for the two different elections, the legislative elections and the presidential elections that took place on the same day. And beyond the failure of iREV, there were several other things that marred the credibility of the 2023 Nigeria general elections. And what we are calling for from the Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room, from civil society generally, is for some independent audit of what happened with the 2023 general elections. And unless we can do that, unless we do that, we're going to find that the 2027 elections is going to be critically marred by the lack of accountability that followed the 2023 general elections. So before we get to 2027, something must be done. The President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, yes, the election cases are over, so we can address this issue, but the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria must act to rebuild confidence in our electoral system. And again, we go back to the example of President Yar'Adua, who came out very clearly to admit that the elections that brought him to power were flawed. This president needs to do the same thing. And it was because President Yar'Adua admitted this that we saw the improvements that began in 2010, which has now deteriorated back to what it was. So INEC hasn't started the explanations. I do not think that a lot of Nigerians are going to be convinced by this present explanation.
That's going to be interesting, but that's not the focus of our conversation. But it's good to have your views on this because I know you've paid a lot of effort in Nigeria's elections. And of course, I can't have you talk to us tonight and not get your view on this. Let's go to the constitutional amendment, which you have also sweated and labored about. Give us an understanding. I was particularly pleasantly surprised. There's one factor in all of the years that every other National Assembly life since 1999, there hasn't been any time up until now that the federal government on one hand, the state governors on the other hand, sat in the same room and agreed on state policing. And there are those who believe that that is the way to go, and we need to concretize that in a constitution amendment. What do you make of the focus that the National Assembly are putting out as their agenda for constitutional amendment?
I think again, the agenda for the National Assembly would be as defined by itself, but I think that this process will always have to be inclusive, which means that Nigerians and the views of Nigerians will need to count. The National Assembly will have to go through a process with respect to how the possible sixth alteration to the Constitution will happen. It will have to listen to citizens. It will have to call for memoranda. The members of the Constitution Review Committee in both the Senate and the House of Representatives will need to listen and look at the memoranda submitted by the public. Yes, of course, we do know that the committee and indeed the members of the National Assembly will have their own suggestions, individual suggestions about what needs to happen. Indeed, looking back, we also look at the outstanding issues from previous alterations to the Constitution, and the debate about state police has been there for a long time. I'm not quite sure what the National Assembly will decide. It will be up to the members to decide that, but it will also be up to Nigerians to contribute to the debates through the various processes that the National Assembly will put in place to receive memoranda, to hold public debates, to hold public hearings, and to listen to Nigerians. And we do know that the process of alteration to the Constitution or amendment of the Constitution is not just a National Assembly issue. It will also go to the state houses of assembly, where the state houses of assembly will vote on specific issues and return their vote back to the National Assembly for transmission to the president for assent. So it's a whole lot of process, and the hope we have is that Nigerians will come out en masse, participate in this. The House of Representatives would be holding on Monday, February the 26th, an inauguration of its committee, but also a civic engagement with citizens to outline what it intends to do, but also to get feedback from citizens on at least initial feedback from citizens on what citizens expect of the National Assembly and particularly the House of Representatives to do. But we do expect that the National Assembly will listen to citizens. Citizens will contribute to the debate, and the National Assembly and indeed the government, both at the national legislative level, at the State House of Assembly and the executive, will listen to citizens in reaching the final alterations that this country will achieve.
If you look at it, there are those who will say that our immediate problems as a people can't be tackled through these constitutional amendments. But we've seen a lot of obstacles, though, in the process, especially when it gets to the state assemblies, when they need to concur on some of these, and the votes will not come, and thereby jeopardizing all of the gamut of efforts that are being put in the process. For you, for your knowledge and your experience in constitutional amendment in Nigeria, what would be your top 3 most critical areas that needs to be addressed in this constitutional amendment process?
I think several issues. Because you raised the issue of security, it's going to be important to address this. And I know that there's all the talk about state policing. This needs to be clearly defined. Simply removing control of the police at certain levels from the federal to the states is not going to address the security problems of the country. Indeed, if you were to hand over the control and command of the police from the president or the inspector of police, who is accountable to the president, so to say, if you hand it over to states commissioners or inspector generals of police at state level, you're going to have a replication, 36 replications of the impunity of police abuse. You would see that with governors who have been totally unaccountable with respect to several of the aspects of governance. So we must watch and manage very carefully how you restructure the police such that you do not create silos of terror in the states controlled by state governors who are very partisan and who the State House of Assembly are unable to control. Secondly, you must also look at how you can get you must also look at how you can get, and I'm not quite sure if you're hearing me right now.
I can hear you, please go ahead.
But excellent, thank you. You must also look at the issue of local governments. States have not allowed local governments to deliver on development. States have not allowed local governments to function effectively. Governors have appropriated funds meant for local governments and used it at will or control its use in a way that has not helped development to sift to the local level. So local government reform is going to be very key. We will have to come back again to the question of constitution review regarding elections in this country. Unfortunately, Nigeria's election process at this time has failed. We're having a situation where citizens are not able to participate in elections in a way that reflects that their vote is counted or counts. So we would have to look at the aspects of the electoral process that makes it impossible for elections to happen in a free and fair manner in this country, to make the Electoral Commission more responsive and accountable to citizens, to insulate the Electoral Commission from political influence, to insulate the judiciary from political influence, such that you have less and less involvement of the judiciary in our electoral system.
All right.
We also must look at political parties to ensure that political parties are made accountable and responsive to their memberships.
Yeah, I mean, quickly, though, if you can just put a word in, I don't know how true this is, but you have your ears to the ground. This issue of possibility of state creation, the possibility that state might be created up to 42, 7 in each region. Could there be any truth to that? Are there any lawmakers who are thinking about this idea?
No idea. I think that if there's a process outlined in the Constitution for creation of states, we'll find that in Section 8 and Section 9 of the Constitution. And of course, you would have to submit a request. From what I know of what is going on with the Constitution review process, or even with the committee, it is not to my knowledge that any requests for states have been submitted to the National Assembly. But if there are rumors, people are, of course, entitled to submit requests for state creation. And I do know that certain regions of the country, particularly the Southeast, feel already shortchanged about the way and manner states have been created. But I'm not aware of any requests for creation of states.
Let's wrap up in this manner, Mr. Nwankwo. What would be your word to the nation? And we are relying tonight on your wealth of experience in this regard. You've gone through a lot of constitutional amendment process. You've consulted, you've spoken, you've enlightened, and you have done a lot of work. For our nation to be better, there are those who are saying overhaul the constitution, restructure Nigeria. What do you think is best for Nigeria? In fact, there are those who are saying parliamentary system of government. We just have about 30 seconds to close. What do you think is best for Nigeria at this time?
What is best for Nigeria is a government that is accountable. When people talk about parliamentary system, it's again exploring how you can make executive arm of government accountable to citizens. And also when you look at the issue of governance in Nigeria generally, I think that people want to see the Constitution reflects that governance is about people, not about those in office. And we must achieve this. We must move towards achieving this. Otherwise, we do have the challenge of our democracy survival.
Clement Nwankwo, perhaps one of those, when they speak about Nigeria's constitution, listen to them, because he's perhaps very much has his pen and his ink in some of the letters and the wordings in those constitution. He is very much knowledgeable in that area. He's been speaking with us from Lagos. Thank you so much, Mr. Nwankwo, for your time tonight.
Thank you, Sheun.
I appreciate your time. That's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'll see you on Sunday at 8 p.m. I've got some package for you. You don't want to miss it. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. God bless Nigeria.